Brought to you by Lean Body, the #1 protein shake in gyms across America.
And 1, and 2.
Everybody do your warm up.
And 4, and 5, and 6.
Are you like doing this? We're gonna be training glutes today. Before we start, I wanna go over a few little hints and tricks about just the basis of glute training. If you let your knee travel over your toe, you're gonna be training your quad. But if you sit back and let the weight travel over your heel here, in anything that you do, you're gonna be training glutes. In this first exercise, we're gonna just do a simple single leg hip thrust. All of the weight is getting pushed through this heel. See that my toe is up here because I'm literally only using that glute, only pushing through the heel. And I'm gonna drive to a contraction. Once I'm at the contraction, right, I wanna make sure that the top is perfect for me here. I'm gonna slowly let it out, still pressing only through that heel and driving up through that heel. And you wanna find complete control. So we're controlled here, we're controlled here. I'm fully controlled at every point of this movement. So I know that it is only my glute working and I'm not shifting my weight forward. I'm not using my quad. I'm not just flexing my hamstring. I'm making sure that I'm driving through that heel and really only using the glute here. So I'm going down into the eccentric here. I'm finding a pause in the stretch. The weight is still fully on my glute here. And then I'm driving up, finding a pause in my contraction, controlling it down, finding a pause in my stretch, and repeat. And then your back should be right below your shoulder blades on the bench. Essentially the goal of glute training or training in general, right, is making it as hard as it possibly could be. So right, I could easily just go from A to B, throw some weight on, get from A to B, but am I really isolating and really contracting my glute? Probably not. So the goal is to get this body weight exercise down completely, hard contractions, and then you might start adding a weight to progress it further. But if you can't make it hard with no weight, then I don't suggest adding weight until you can really, really isolate and really feel the movement. Just like we just talked about with that single leg hip thrust, everything you do needs to be sitting back, pressing through the heel, and we're gonna apply that here too. I like to call them step downs. You're kind of stepping up, but we're gonna start up here, and I want you to reach this back foot back, and I want you to make sure this knee is not going any percentage towards that toe, and you're gonna do that by bending both legs here. Again, all the pressure is in this front heel, and we're gonna drive up through that working heel and squeeze forward. Reach back, full stretch, drive up, squeeze through that working glute, reach back, full stretch, full pause. So I'm fully controlled here with this glute. Coming up, full pause in the contraction, coming back down, and repeating that every single time. Again, focusing on isolating, using only the glute, pushing only through that front working heel, and only using that back foot to support. Make sure that you're only using that glute and not taking any weight off with the back foot. Progressing this movement, you might find that because of your control, you're able to do it body weight and fail between 8 to 12, but as you progress, you're gonna need to add weight. So I'm gonna show you how you can add weight here. When you step down, you're gonna do the same thing. This dumbbell is gonna follow down. All this weight's through this heel. I'm up and forward, squeezing. Step back, all the weight's here. Up and forward, squeeze. Less is more. Ultimately, the more you control it, the slower it is, the better contraction, the better stretch, the less weight you have to do, the less weight you have to carry. Less is more. We're gonna hit leg press, one of my favorite exercises for glutes. I feel like it's underrated. We're gonna apply those same factors that we've been applying to the first two exercises, which is pushing through that heel, not letting the knee travel towards the toes, and some elite control so that make sure that we are only using the glute here. You can be high and wide here. I like to be kind of high and shoulder width here, but all of the weight's gonna be coming through my heels here. As it comes down, coming through the heels, heels, heels. I'm feeling a stretch of my glute here. Once I feel a stretch of my glute, I'm using only my glute to press out. And you notice I'm not extending my knees. So you're not coming to an extension of the knees. You are coming to a stretch of the glute, to a contraction of the glute, which ends right before you might lock out your knees. And it's a very shallow range of motion that you might feel, but you will understand that you are only using your glutes here. If you watch actually from the side here, you'll see that my knees don't end up going towards my toes. If my feet are down here, you'll notice that my knees travel towards my toes, and now I'm working my quads. But if I lift them up, then I can really put it in my glutes and really isolate them. Right, you should feel like right here is a full stretch of my glute, and then when I squeeze, I could not, obviously I'm not extending my hips forward like in a hip thrust, but I am in a full contraction of the glute here. But again, my toes are up. I'm pressing hard through those heels so that I do not include anything except for my glutes. If you look over here, you'll see that I have a band rigged up, tied down by a 100-pound plate or 100-pound dumbbell. What this is gonna do is overload the top of the portion of the movement, which is gonna be that contraction of the glutes. So just like everything else, you don't wanna be pushing through your toes. If you let your knees travel forward, you're gonna be training quads. So with that being said, when I get under the bar here, I unrack it, my feet are in front of me, and ultimately, I can lift my toes the whole time, right? So this is exaggerating, right? But if I go down, I can keep my toes up, and I'm squeezing my glutes to get up, right? And my toes aren't gonna be up for the actual movement, but you'll understand that I'm sitting back, hard pause in the stretch, and then I am squeezing my glutes up and forward. I'm not extending my hips, but I am coming to a contraction of the glute there. So I'm going down, sitting into it, driving through my heels, squeezing up and forward for the glutes, sitting into it, full pause, squeeze. Every single glute machine was not created equally. I'm a pretty firm believer in that. So I think the most important thing when you find a glute machine or you want to use a glute machine is going to be to find the hard contraction, right? I need to find where I personally feel it the most in my glutes, which happens to be there, right? So from the top here, I'm going to slowly control it down, full pause, and squeeze up. Your feet should be roughly shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit wider. But what's really important is that as you're going down, you strap in. So driving for the contraction here, as I'm going into the stretch here, I'm gonna let my knees come out a smidge and drive. We're gonna use a 1/2 inch band. This is an Elite FTS band. Any band's gonna work, but we're gonna use dumbbells to do an RDL, but band it from the back to overload the contraction of the movement, just like we did with those Smith squats. Set your dumbbells in front of you, and then you wanna go ahead and get into your band without holding anything so you don't kill yourself. This band is gonna sit roughly right where it's gonna be on a barbell hip thrust, so right across your hips. You want it to be pulling you, but you don't want it to be pulling you back. So you wanna kind of step it out till you get to a comfortable position where you feel like you are in control of the band, but it's also gonna aid in this exercise. With that being said, you want a slight bend in the knee. Slight bend in the knee, the dumbbells are gonna be in front of you, and you're gonna follow them back, follow them down, push your hips back, pause, and squeeze up and forward. So I feel like I could use a little more resistance, so I step forward. I'm gonna let it pull my hips back, dumbbells down, up and forward, squeeze. So you want to follow them down, and you want to get a full pause in your stretch, but don't let it go so far that your glutes are no longer involved. Right here, my glutes are still involved. So I'm going to keep it here, and I'm going to squeeze it up and forward and repeat it again. Commonly, you're training hamstrings with an RDL, but when we're trying to just train glutes here, how you can do that is limiting that range of motion. So you're not wrong if you go further down if you have more flexibility, but the chances that you have the flexibility to touch the ground and keep your glutes involved are probably pretty low. So what you really want to do is make sure that as you're going down, it is my glute, 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 right? Here I can just let it go down, but I'm not using my glute anymore. So if I keep them really engaged, you'll keep it a shorter range of motion. That will be a lot more glute focused than just a standard, RDL like this. I hope you guys got something out of this video. If you liked it, like, comment, or subscribe to our channel and let us know what you might want to see.